Sorry for the technical difficulties. It took us a little bit to get going, but here we are. So I guess I'll go first. I'm Megan, and welcome to First Name Basis, where we sit down with TribalScale employees and special guests to have an authentic conversation on a variety of tech, business, and innovation topics. Today we'll be talking about a program, Everyone is a Designer. Like I said before, I'm Megan. I'm a lead marketing designer at TribalScale, and in Everyone is a Designer, I taught the final visual presentation program course.
Hey everyone, I'm Betty, and I'm a design strategist on the Venture Studios team at TribalScale.
And I'm Leila. I'm a product designer here at TribalScale, and I began Everyone is a Designer late last year and ran the very first cohort in January.
Okay, Leila, since you kind of ran it and took the lead on it, can you tell us a little bit more about what Everyone is a Designer is?
Yeah, well, it started out with a few of us from the design team going to an event here in Toronto, the DesignX Leadership Summit, and we heard Jared Spool talk. He's a huge influence to a lot of us, and he spoke about how design teams can leverage other people in different departments in their companies, as well as like stakeholders, to really improve the design that is going into their products. So everyone a designer doesn't really mean that everyone has to become a product designer, but we need to increase the amount of people talking about design and being part of the design process so that we can improve the products that we build.
So what inspired you to create this program at TribalScale and build it out here?
Yeah, so something that we're always thinking about is here at TribalScale is to not silo information and really prioritize sharing information. We work on a lot of new technology. We're always investigating new things and really putting time in professional development. How do we share that across departments to different people and make sure we really leverage the intelligent people we have on our teams? There's this stereotype about designers being cliquey and kind of getting a brief, running away, kind of working on some beautiful designs, coming back and being like, build this, it's amazing, this is my baby. And we really wanted to get rid of that and get more people that aren't in the design team kind of learning about what it is that we do.
Yeah, we could be very mysterious. So who participated? Designers as teachers, like TS employees?
So it really started with getting the designers on the TribalScale design team on board. So leveraging you guys and your expertise to kind of build out a network of teachers who can really share just a wealth of knowledge with different people across TribalScale. Next steps was doing a survey to find out like what people would be interested in learning, where they feel like they may be lacking some information, and finding out what inspires people would potentially inspire people to join. And then just kind of putting feelers out, seeing who would be interested, and doing kind of a first pilot with Everyone is a Designer in January with those that were interested in learning more about design.
Betty, I know you were kind of part at like the very beginning, doing a lot of the strategy and like organizing the very first class and getting that going. So how were you involved in like organizing that part of it?
Yeah, so that was really fun and kind of scary because it was the first class, and so we put together a brief, just a couple of different briefs that people would work on throughout the term, and I think the first class was kind of setting the tone for what was happening for the rest, and it was also the first class to learn from. So yeah, I was involved in teaching the first class, which was design thinking with Liz on our team here, and research.
Great. So how was the program structured, and how did we kind of go through the first cohort?
Yeah, so first we kind of built out a curriculum, did some research into other like workshops, boot camps that are available in Toronto, used the survey to find out what people were interested in learning about, to build, and also we reflected upon our own design process at TribalScale to really find out what would be interesting and relevant for people to learn about. And then we broke the curriculum into 4 major themes. So starting with, like Betty mentioned, research and strategy in design, and then moving into design principles, heuristics, usability, Gestalt laws, going through iterations and user testing and how we go about that. And then finally, like the pitch and presentation, which you really covered.
Great, I did. So how was it figuring out how to structure the course and like deciding what to kind of include, what to kind of take out, because it is, I mean, 4 weeks is like pretty short. So like how did you go about going through that whole process? Because it can be a pretty long process.
Honestly, yeah, we really had to just dive right in and see what worked and see what didn't. And we iterated from the get-go. So we, like Betty and myself and Liz, we planned out the first class, and we had a lot of content and a lot of workshops all fitted into like an hour's worth of time. And fail fast, that was not enough time to really go through and allow the students to absorb that information and really get some hands-on experience as well. So we pivoted, and second week rounds, we kind of said we would do 30 minutes lecture, 30 minutes work time, and then the lecture went on for about 45 minutes. I think we really got more of a flow going by the third class, where we decided to have a structure where we had like more of a office hours time where we could ask questions outside of class, and provided time in class where we gave examples and really started to think about how we could be pedagogical with our education style.
Great. And so you talked a little bit about what was covered, but like what kind of things did you teach? Like I know design thinking, so there was like testing and like all that kinds of things. So what did you get into like the nitty-gritty of?
Yeah, I'll let Betty speak to this in a moment, but what we did is we broke the kind of first cohort, the students, into groups and gave them like some raw data, some briefs at the beginning, and then brought them through like the first iteration of how that would go through our TribalScale design process. So started with strategy and kind of business planning, moved into drawing out wireframes, pencil and paper. We used the Marvel app, prototyping on paper app, to actually create something that they would be able to, a prototype they could go out and test on actual members of their user group, and then presented what they learned from the user testing.
Yeah, and I think it was a really good mix of, or we tried to give it a really good mix of theory and practice within design. So like, for example, I do a lot of research here at TribalScale, so that's why I taught that portion of the first week.
Yeah.
And in that part, I went over 4 of the most used research methodologies that I'm using in my job, but also kind of alluded to there are other options, and we give resources at the end of the class so that if people are interested in a specific area, they can always go and read up on it more. And the same thing with, we kind of gave some ideas as to how to frame ideas using maps and empathy maps and things like that. So we went over a couple of those for them to start the exercises, and then just gave resources for further information.
Absolutely. A goal from this was really to get people starting to think about where the designs that they see, like if they're a developer or QA specialist, and they are looking at Zeppelin, at what we've built, getting them understanding maybe where we've come from with some of our design decisions, and importantly, if they have, expert knowledge, maybe they can contribute to our design decisions, because they're part of the product too, they're part of the process, and they're going to influence the final result. So giving them like thought starters, and then allowing them to kind of use what they've learned to really expand that themselves.
That kind of goes into the next question I was going to ask. So what did you find the overall benefits for the students and others? I guess you kind of covered the students, but I guess for like the teachers and like TribalScale as a whole, like what did you find the benefits were?
For me, just from a teaching perspective, I like I said, I failed fast. I made a lot of assumptions, and I learned a lot about how to structure the lessons for cohort 2, which is starting up next month, and kind of how we can really help students to go through the process.
Yeah, and I guess as designers too, I'm more and more believing in this fact that designers are the people who bring people together to collaborate with. So I recently went to this conference called Interaction 19, and Don Norman kind of said this in his keynote, that he believes that designers shouldn't design, it's people who should design, and the designers are really the ones to bring disciplines together, bring people together, and make them collaborate. So also as designers, as we're sort of designing digital technology, and as technology advances, we need to start thinking more about the implications of exactly what we're designing. And I think it's also important that everyone collaborates on this in terms of anyone who's part of touching that product, because, and that's, I think, the whole idea of everyone's a designer too, is not only do you see how design is done in terms of practical, but also the thinking behind it. And no matter what part of production or strategy you are of that team, you really contribute as somebody who's forming that product going out there to your users. So you should be understanding them, and you should be hearing all the interviews and insights that we're also seeing.
Absolutely, that's like at the heart of it. We all have an impact, and the more we know, the better conversations we have, the better the product. And as designers, we have to be subject matter experts about each different project we get put on. We are researchers, we wear many different hats. So the more people we get involved, the more we can learn, the better we can be as designers.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think too for like the designers on our team, it gives them a good platform to kind of like practice in a really safe space, like thought leadership and being able to like speak about your craft and like getting them upped on all of those kinds of those soft skills that we don't really practice as much.
Yeah.
Like when we're heads down on projects and stuff like that.
Yeah, and it was really hard putting it into like a teaching format because I'm so used to doing it that when it came to like, okay, actually putting together a presentation, educating people about design, I think that's a whole other practice that we have to practice.
Sure.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Okay, so how do you find this benefits TribalScale like overall?
Well, I think that a good way that it's going to benefit TribalScale is we also have a transformation pillar where we work with companies and really kind of teach them about our processes and how we work. And in terms of design transformation, really getting our teachers, our designers used to being in this teacher role and how we can best share our practices, teach what we do, and as well just learn from ourselves and others. I think it's really going to benefit TribalScale.
Yeah.
and in a lot of those transformations, I think the biggest issue that corporations have right now is that their departments are super siloed. They don't talk to each other. So in making products that are more understandable across disciplines, that's part of transformation as well, is teaching our clients how to really communicate between themselves as well as a team.
And reduce like the disconnect between all the teams.
Yeah.
What's next for Everyone Designer? You mentioned cohort 2 a little bit, but where do you see it going there?
So we have cohort 2 coming up. What's really come up whilst we're planning this next cohort is how can we scale just not the in-class lessons, but bring everyone as a designer to more offices that aren't just in Toronto. Like TribalScale is an international company, and how do we leverage what we have here and share that with people that maybe aren't even in the same time zone? Whether that's going online, I'm not sure, but that's what's in the future.
Cool. So more specifically about cohort 2, what were some of the learnings you had from the first cohort, and how have you changed the second class or second course, I guess?
Definitely more, less just talking at students and more talking with students. More time to let things soak in. Kind of being flexible in what students are going to want to do during class. There may be more questions than you anticipate, so really just being more flexible, like providing a curriculum but allowing that to play out as it happens.
Great. So what can listeners do today to get into design? Do you guys have any resources?
Yeah. I listen to a lot of podcasts, and not just design podcasts, but also research podcasts. So one I would say is Steve Portugal has his podcast called Dollars to Donuts, and it's back now. So he speaks with lead researchers in a lot of really interesting organizations. And then I also listen to a lot of academic research podcasts, because they're sort of at the forefront of creating something that isn't commoditized. And the benefits of that is you really learn about what's coming out and how academically people think about these issues, which sometimes doesn't actually happen in commercialized jobs. So that would be my...
Yeah, that's
Go
cool.
to some events, I don't know.
Yeah, go to events like DesignX Leadership Summit, join communities on Slack, and get talking to other designers.
Yeah.
Come to our class.
Yeah. Once it's live, come to our class. So I think that's everything we wanted to talk about today. Thanks everyone for joining us. If you made it here, great. To learn more about us, visit our website at www.tribalscale.com.